Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to our Gilmore Jasion Mahler
That's right.
Financial Executive Roundtable. So glad you're here. Great turnout today. We just did a presentation earlier today in Findlay with, again, a wonderful turnout. So it's great to see so many people here to talk workforce shortage. My name is Susan Ross Wells. I am the marketing manager for Gilmore Jasion Mahler. And you know, Wes Beham and I have been tag teaming on this effort, our partner, for a number of weeks. We've been talking with a lot of educators, manufacturers, and sometimes we get this question, where are you from? An accounting firm, huh? You know, they're not really making the connection as to why we would be interested in wanting to move this issue forward and helping manufacturers. Fact is, Gilmore Jasion Mahler does a lot of work with manufacturers. So basically, our roundtable series is for you, the manufacturers. I know we also have a lot of construction companies here today, certainly affected by this issue as well. But basically, this is for you. So we're hoping we can move this conversation forward and maybe look at ways to collaborate to move the needle on this very important issue. So from there, I'd like to introduce our panel today. I'll start with Ron Motter, who's Penta Career Center Superintendent. Thanks for being here, Ron. We also have Andrew Billups, who is a Penta graduate and the operations manager for ToolComp here in Toledo. And this is his dad, David Billups, who is actually with Schindler Elevator. And he's our parent here today, because we think that is an important voice in this conversation. And also Dr. Romules Durant from Toledo Public Schools. Superintendent, thanks so much for being here. We're glad to have you here. We also like to go around and just introduce ourselves here today so that everybody knows who's in the room. So I think let's do that now. We'll start with table one. We'll start with you.
Start with Universal Metals.
Todd McCain with Universal Metals.
Todd Hendricks Jr., Pioneer Industrial Systems.
Brian Burns, Cutting Edge Countertops. Skipped over Wes. Wes BM, Gilmore.
Bill Reineke, State Rep from the 88th District.
JB Blackwater from BSI Global.
Lynn Whelan, Spangler Candy Company.
Larry Jones, Principal Business Enterprises.
Adele Jason, Gilmore Jasion Mahler.
Matt Dixon, also with Spangler Candy Company.
Tim Meister, Superintendent, Fort County Career Center.
Mike J. Cool Seal USA.
Dave Gallagher, Northwest State Community College, Sadat Park, Toledo branch.
Charlie Hyde, Gilmore Jasion Mahler.
Todd Hendricks, Pioneer Industrial Systems.
Dan Dar, Rena Lennon.
Greg Ettinger, Superintendent, Vanguard Central Current Technology Centers in Fremont and Tiffin.
I'm Angie Morlock, also with Vanguard Sentinel.
Jerry Bird with Rena Lennon Services.
Michael Brough, GJM.
Dave McGranahan, Ice Industries.
I'm Madison, Ice Industries.
Chuck Myers, Ryder Enterprises.
Mike Bay with Lucas County Planning and Development.
Bob Bobek with Gilmore Jason Mahler.
Hi, I'm Greg Nussbaum with TarpStop.
Matt Sutter, I'm with Lucas County Planning and Development.
Sam Lama, Help Instrument.
Kathy Despot, Gilmore Jason Mahler.
Deanna Hall, Gilmore Jason Mahler.
Gary Kester, Kester Metals Incorporated.
Joe Rutherford, Penta Career Center Board Member.
Mike Challenger, Automatic Handling International.
Tony Gerhardt, Gilmore Jason Mahler.
Paul DeMarkowski, Foundation Steel.
Miguel Resendez, Machine Operator for ToolComp.
Lisa Aaron with Lucas County Planning and Development. Jamie Weaver, GJM.
Pam Hepburn, OCP Contractors. Troy Etherbaby, OCP Contractors.
Mike Scheiding, Harbor Capital Advisors.
Steve Schultz, Gilmore Jason Mahler. Steve Miller, Gilmore Jason Mahler.
Janice Palmerides, Checker Distributors.
Mark Eckler, Ice Industries.
Troy Wildermuth with the Ohio Extension Manufacturing Extension Partnership. Or one of those two.
Hey everyone, Matt Haberman, Gilmore Jason Mahler.
Jocelyn Libertor, I'm with the Toledo Regional Chamber of Commerce.
Ed Ewers, Assistant Superintendent, Penta Career Center.
John Reif, Penta Career Center. Chris Casper, Gilmore Jason Mahler.
Craig Myers, Reimer Enterprises.
Monica Danzak, Penta Career Center.
Mike Farrar, Welco Industrial.
I'm Karen Gerhardinger from the Mirror newspaper, and I have a son who just graduated from Penta.
Eric Leach, legislative aide to Representative Brian Key.
Stacy Heitmeyer, Gilmore Jason Mahler.
Marshall Wolf, Penta Career Center.
Nick Ice, Gilmore Jason Mahler.
Jessica Nunn, GJM.
Mike Farrar, Welco Industrial.
Excellent. Thank you all so much, and welcome. We have a really good group here today. We can solve this thing. Okay, it's taken a couple decades so far, but we can do this in a couple of hours. Actually, really quickly, our agenda for this afternoon is a couple quick notes from our partner Charlie Hyde for manufacturers, just a couple issues that we want to keep you abreast of. We'll go right into our interactive panel from there and then into some roundtable discussions. We have an activity that we hope will promote further conversation. And from there, I'll just hand it over to Charlie for Manufacturer's Corner and a couple of issues. You want to come over here, Charlie, or speak from there, whatever? Okay. You'll need the mic. We are being videotaped. We think something very profound is going to happen here, and we want to record the whole thing, so this is your big chance.
Okay, so we're just going to cover just three items I wanted to make you aware of. Last week at the Ohio Manufacturing Association Tax Committee, a couple of items that you need to be aware of. Right now, Ohio is in the process of it's called a 5-year review. And basically what that is agencies can submit changes to rules that they would like revised, and they do this every 5 years. Ohio Department of Taxation has submitted a revision to the Ohio manufacturing tax exemption. The OMA is on top of that. If you'd like, I can send you some materials on what they've determined. Some of them are pretty vanilla changes, but there are some that are of some concern, and manufacturers should be involved in that decision. And the largest piece is they're trying to condense the definition of manufacturing when it starts, and that is of some concern. Number two, the budget, as you are aware, there is a item in there about municipalities as far as the state would take over administration of profit taxes, business taxes. There was a lot of pushback there, as you can imagine, from cities, municipalities. Where they're at today is looking for what's called an opt-in approach, which means it would be up to you if you want to continue to file with your municipality as you do, or you opt in to file one return with the state versus filing multiple returns with multiple municipalities. And then the last item the OMA is taking up is this issue on workforce. And again, 1,400 members that have said this is a major issue. So they have started a kind of around the state tour. I know they've had a meeting in Dayton, I believe one down in Cincinnati. As soon as we have a date up in Northwest Ohio when they will be up here to, again, very similar to a group like this, to get input, we'll get it out to you, and hopefully you'll be able to attend.
That. All right, from there we want to get right into speaking the same language with young people. Where are they? Where can you find them? You want them to come work for you, right? We have been talking with some young people. We're going to hear a little bit from Andrew in just a minute. But that is the question. How do you connect with them? Where are they? We had a chance to get to know Vanguard Sentinel Career and Technology Centers as a part of this whole process, preparing for Roundtable, and we're going to share with you now some thoughts from some of their young people.
Hi, I'm Bree. I'm a junior at Vanguard, and my class is Engineering, Technologies, and Robotics. I believe that manufacturers can get more young students involved in this workforce by getting them started at a younger age. Having more hands-on activities at schools will help kids learn the values of making things with your hands and show them what the possibilities are in this workforce. Plus, it's a lot of fun, and they learn a whole lot from it.
I am Derek. I'm a junior, and I'm in precision machining. And I believe that manufacturers should provide incentives for students by starting to talk about machining in their home schools at an earlier age, and provide benefits to graduates of vocational school like Sentinel, and get bonuses and paid just a little bit extra when they start.
Hi, I'm Morgan. I'm a junior and I'm 17. I think in order to get it out there about machine shops, you can go into classrooms, home schools at like young ages, freshmen or sophomores, and just show them what to do, what the salary would be, and just get them thinking about it. So then as they get older, they can make a decision.
My name is Dakota Kohler, and I am in ETR. I feel that to get more manufacturers in the field, we need to know how much money we're going to be getting to support our family, to know that all the hard work that we're going to be doing to put in the effort to get the perfect part and all the measurements right. I think we should know how much money we need to get.
I'm Austin Halsey. I'm a junior, and I'm in welding and metal fab. And I think the way manufacturers could engage with students more is come into the home schools and offer tours of the factories and plants, and offer weekend classes, and even offer summer jobs to students, even if they're just a couple days a week. Get them in the field and give them a feel for it and see how they like it.
All right, so a little bit of an idea from young people, what they might be thinking. And Angie Morlock, thank you for that, hearing from your young people at Vanguard, Sentinel. And maybe it's all about educators and manufacturers speaking the same language too. So we're going to start off our panel discussion. I'm going to start with you, Ron, just kind of to tee this up for us. We all know what the problem is. We're not here to rehash the problem. I'm sure all of you are very tired of going to meetings where you just sit there and talk about the problem. We're hoping to be able to come up with some action items. So can you tee this up for us, though, sort of how we got here from your perspective?
Well, I think a big piece of how we got here is that, I guess kind of since World War II, we've pushed the idea that a four-year degree is the only pathway to success for young people. And it's only gotten worse as we've got further removed from that late 1940s, early 1950s time frame. And I don't say that to denigrate a four-year degree, but a four-year degree that does not lead you into a productive career path, a job that you can make a good wage and have a good career with. One of the things that I ask students when I talk with students and parents that, maybe they're a freshman, sophomore, junior, or even a senior. Okay, I'm going to XYZ college. What are you going to get a degree in? I'm going to get it in X. What's the job title at the end of that degree? And that's usually when the deer in the headlight look comes on. I'm going to get a degree in business, and it's going to be in. They aren't thinking beyond, just the immediate future of what they're going to do. So this isn't an issue that, in 1965, when Penta Career Center opened, the dedication ceremony was held in May of 1966. Governor Rhodes was there. A lot of industry leaders from around the area were there. The head of the Board of Regents was there. All these big shots were there. And one of the most important remarks that was made at that dedication ceremony for the first career center in the state was by the vice president of Chrysler at that time, who said that basically the reason why we located a machining plant in Perrysburg Township was because of the opening of Penta Career Center. He said we can put bricks and mortar up anywhere, but we can't find a workforce. We got to go where we can find the workforce. Interesting, in 1965, we're still having that same conversation today. You're going to locate where you can find the workforce at. And a question I'd like you to think about as we move through the rest of this conversation, and at some point I want to have a show of hands. How many of your companies have been asked by the district or school districts that your footprint lies in to be a part of a career fair at that school, whether it's elementary, middle, or high school? I'm going to bet the number is going to be pretty low, because when I talk to people at the elementary and junior high level, when I ask about, well, do you have skilled trades there? Do you have somebody from a truck driving school? Do you have all these paths that aren't college prep? No, we don't have that. It's all these professional type careers. So I'd like you to just kind of mull that over, and we'll turn it over to the next person to start us off here.
Okay. We're off to a rousing start, aren't we? All right.
My blood pressure's up already, huh?
All right. Okay, Andrew, we had a chance to meet with you and your dad, Wes and I, and just wondered if you could share with us a little bit of your story, which is an interesting path, and also that you have, I don't know, I would say an interesting view of your generation, right? Which I guess the millennials. So share a little bit about your story.
Well, starting off, I started high school at Perrysburg High School. I then went to Penta Career Center for 2 years in criminal justice class. I enjoyed it thoroughly. It did a lot for me for really everything about my personality today. After that, I went to Owens Community College to pursue criminal justice. After about a year and a half, I decided that wasn't really the path I wanted to go down. For reasons that you could probably guess, they're not too difficult to guess. I wouldn't say.
And I should reference that what you're talking about is some of the difficulties that have come up
exactly.
In terms of the safety of police officers, et cetera, in this day and age. That's a sobering thing to think about a career.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Once you actually think that you're putting your life on the line and maybe even someone else's life on the line, that makes you think twice. And it takes a special kind of person to be in criminal justice. Anyway, after I decided to not pursue criminal justice, I then tried to focus my thoughts on maybe engineering school. So, I prepared myself to graduate from Owens with a Bachelor of Science or Associate of Science, and I did so. After that, I went to UT to pursue mechanical engineering. I got into the program, but I actually it was very tough. But I planned on pursuing that for the rest of my duration in school. Several months back, I emailed several different employers around the area, and asked if they wanted to meet up and get their viewpoint on their career, and maybe I could decide what path I really wanted to go down. So only about 2 employers actually contacted me back. One was a plumber, and one was a machinist. The machinist was David Gonzalez. He's my boss and the president of Tool Comp. It's a machining company in Toledo. So now I'm pursuing a career in precision machining. This is the most difficult thing I've done at this point in my life. Stress every day. It's very fun. You could probably ask Miguel back there. I work with him on a daily basis. It's extremely stressful, but I really love what I do, because this is in my mind sort of the basis of the U.S. economy, of maybe any economy. So I'm very patriotic about what I do at this point. Believe it or not, more so than when I was in criminal justice. So that's probably the neatest thing I've drawn from it.
And we're going to get back to you on, again, just sort of your unique view of your generation. But I want to bring your dad in here, just talk a little bit about sort of the parent perspective. Your family has I guess, is maybe an anomaly when we look at the general view on what people perceive manufacturing to be. I just wondered if you could share, just from a parent's perspective, and I know your wife is also very involved,
exactly,
but just on your son's journey into manufacturing.
Yeah, so, you know, we go back to sort of the beginning of Andrew's story, sort of when he started with Owens, and he was going through there, he's going through criminal justice. We were behind him in that, and then he wanted to change. It's like we both, you know, were somewhat happy that he wanted to make that change. Again, like he says, you have to be someone very special, being law enforcement these days, very special. So he wanted to go on to be an engineer. That's great. This is the field I'm in, and that's and I understood that, and I, you know, it's like, okay, you know, it's great. Let's dig into it. And then at some point he's like, well, let's see what's out there, right? So, and so, you know, he started, you know, contacting people out there to see if he could get what we would call an apprenticeship, because he wanted to expand out into that area. And so, you know, his mom and myself were not really stuck in any model. His mom, just backing up to her, was in employment her whole career, and still is in employment now. So we understand, and I've learned a lot from her in this, that there's many more paths than just the one that we're sort of chunked out through our school career to understand what our destiny's going to be. So he's gone this way. We're very proud of him. I know he does a good job. I know he's very diligent. I know he's very bright, and he applies himself. And so there's never been any doubt of that. It's just, what is the right path, right? What is the right path? I was listening to some of these people earlier, what I would call kids, but young adults here that was on the film earlier, and so it's like, the recurring theme, and the one that we had discussed, is we need to start earlier in this career with these children and these kids, right? And certainly, and I know there's educators here, so I want to step on your feet, but you know, at some point you have to get to 3 R's, right? As a young growing from out of kindergarten to first grade, but at some point, to their point, and what I had talked about, is let's start exposing them to other paths. And this is, I think, you know, some of the things we were talking about, where this group, and a very diverse group, which I appreciate, governmental and so forth, and industry, that, like you say, could affect us. But as a just stepping back again, as a parent, my job is to support and help him be successful. And I hope, you know, as the manufacturers, you probably have this same goal to pull these people in. I would be very proud to have him, and there's lots of young people like him as well that are very bright, very ambitious, but they don't necessarily want to go down a predetermined path. There's lots of options that you can apply yourself to, just like he is.
Right. They may not be getting that message, though, from society, right? So, all right, turning to Dr. Durant, just curious, from the TPS standpoint, how do you recommend that manufacturers get more engaged with school systems, and maybe talk a little bit about how TPS engages with industry?
Yeah, you know, the thought, just as Mr. Billups and Andrew had just alluded to, is that intimate involvement. If you think the pathway that he went to, he had sent emails out to multiple individuals. One responded, who ultimately set him on a pathway to go into his career. You know, and I tell people, just that we have a conversation, that when you talk about the industry, you have to treat it like a recruitment effort that I would see a Coach Saban or a Coach Myers. You know, I come from the college industry. When I played football, people were at the door every day embracing you. And so we have a young man who's going to Ohio State, and I had a conversation with him, what chose Ohio State, and he says, well, Coach Myers is like my best friend. Coach Myers just got on board 6 months ago. But what did Coach Myers do within those 6 months? This young man feels like he's his best friend. I'm going to choose the occupation and take my football career at Ohio State because of that. Because there were others who were at the door, and those who failed to show up at the door more and more are the ones who lost out at the end of talent. And so we see those same opportunities in industry within our high school sectors. Those who are industry who sit on our advisory board have the impact of taking out the top tier kids as well as medium tier kids into their programs. I mean, when we started supply chain management, General Motors was the first to jump on board and said, I want to be on the board, and I want to be part of the advisory board to choose, and they choose 3 kids every year to go and do internships, and they give them pre-contracts to go right into industry. And so at the end of the day, the more that they're involved on the advisory board, the more they become involved on the day-to-day interactions and showing the instructor, because at the end of the day, technology and all those things change one year after another. And so what we do is we recruit teachers from the industry to come in to be the teachers who ultimately have the networks and association. But at the end of the day, being out of industry for a year or 2 years, you're a little bit out of touch yourself. And so those advisories become more important to impact the instructor, just as they are impacting the students.
Could these people sign up to be on advisory boards?
Definitely.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Who should they contact if they want to do
if
that?
it is, they could contact me. I always
Okay.
meet with industry. I sit to go one-on-one to make it to show this it's an importance at the end of the day, because to me, you know, we get into this college and this dynamic college and industry, but at the end of the day, apprenticeship is the most effective teaching than anything I've ever seen. Is that a child or a person who's able to study under a master within a degree of their skill set, that person walks out with an ability that they've owned from that individual. My skill set will manifest based on the talent of the master. And you can see the degree of different masters. And so within that, I say that's the same way with education. I'm trying to reform the universities and saying you got to teach the whole program of teaching to have to change. I said, because you can't expect a person to do student teaching for 2 semesters, now all of a sudden they're ready to go to the teaching industry without having an ongoing apprenticeship 1 year after another. They should have 4 years of internships with teachers to ultimately now they feel that they have all the inventory of troubleshooting, because in industry you run into trouble all the time. And you know, my father, he worked in the factory in Falls Story, Ohio. He had commuted from Toledo to Falls Story every day to Allied Automotive. And he would always laugh and say, yeah, we got this guy coming from the university with the master's degree, and the assembly line shuts down. And the guy with the master's degree wants to come up from out of the office, let me take care of this. He spends an entire hour trying to fix the assembly line. Then he finally turned to those who know it best and say, what's going on? And the guy took a rubber band off his wrist and put it on the machine, and the assembly line was back to going. He told him you could take that $60,000 degree and go somewhere else, because at the end of the day, it's the industry and the practicality that really have the impact on those who go into the industry. And so, you know, I've had the blessing to go study the internship or apprenticeship in Germany, and they have probably one of the most advanced internships, apprenticeship that I've seen in essence of what they do as a social system. One of the things that the people complain the most about is you have to declare your major in 5th grade. So you determine everything you do by the time you're in the 5th grade. And everything is an internship. When you go to the counter, to the hotel, oh, what are you here for? I'm doing my internships. When you go to the food market and you go to the restaurant, oh, I'm part of the apprenticeship. Every job is part of the apprenticeship, and everybody goes to the Chamber of Commerce to get approved for qualification within that. And so what we've done at TPS is that in the 5th grade, we do a career building pathway, which is called Naviance, and it tells kids what their strengths are, as well as their weaknesses, and what are the career programs that are within their strengths that they could be successful in. Here are the programs from a collegiate or post-secondary option that you can go into in the area of Ohio, as well as the area across the country, and here are the salaries tied to those career choices. So what we do is we do in the 6th grade, they do field trips, and they go out to these programs. So here's your strengths, this is your portfolio, now we're gonna start busing you out to the aviation center, bus you out to many of our precision courses, bus you out to the agricultural center, because we see this as in your strengths. And at the end of the day, you're able to get hands-on experience with other kids in the high school sector, decide on, is this really what I wanna do? And you're talking about 6th grade. 7th and 8th, we call early high school opportunity. Now you can take high school courses in 7th and 8th grade. So by the time you get in 9th and 10th grade, you should be finishing up your course of study, but you're spending your 11th and 12th grade in industry or getting a post-secondary opportunity of a degree or apprenticeship or certification.
We're going to pull in another perspective too now. Wes, I know you wanted to bring in Representative Reinecke with some thoughts.
We're going to bring it out to the crowd here. We had some discussions with Representative Reinecke, and he kind of showed how strongly he feels about the education piece, so in manufacturing. So what needs to change here?
I was happy to serve on the governor's task force for workforce, so I feel like right in the center of all of this. And we had career tech schools, we had industrial, we had unions, and we had the business roundtable, different representatives. So the whole thing comes back to the access of the students and aligning them up with the private sector and what is available. So one of the things, the access as far as what's available, we've done some different things around the state with showcases. I know in Seneca County and Sandusky County, which is where I'm from, the economic development groups had showcases where they'd bus in 800, 900 students. One was at Sentinel, and they were very helpful with that, where the students can experience what the different opportunities are. When you ask a group of students if they know what career tech is or if they'd be interested in that, 6% would say yes. If you tell them that includes robotics, gaming, coding, computers, it goes to 60%. So that's one of the things with the education world that we're trying to do. Also with the advisory board, the advisory boards, you're right on there, Doctor, with that. That's one of the recommendations that we also had. There's a lot of schools that don't have them, and you need to have them. And it's my favorite little thing about pushing back on your local schools to the standpoint that they need to know what you need in your employment. And I know there's a lot of miscommunication out there, and my direct conversations with the superintendent of public education in Ohio, you know, we have a huge remediation problem, and we need to push back on our schools so that they know what we need from the business community. So the advisory groups do work, and we strongly suggest those, and even if it's a small school. We had a different group at lunch today, and some of them had them, but some of them didn't know that they're available, and it's already in the code, and it's something we can do. We don't have to change anything or make anything different happen other than put them together. And we want them a little bit more useful than just having them come in, telling them what you're doing, and serving them lunch. So we need that input so we know it's available. In my area, the manufacturing is very, very heavy, and there's a lot of opportunity there that kids just don't know what that is, or parents, and that's my other little thing is the stigma. Everybody in this room can help with that. We've got to change this stigma that manufacturing or these types of jobs are not worthy. And I come from a world of dealerships where we tried to secure technicians, and that was always difficult too. So why would you ever want to have your kid be a technician? Well, because they earn double the average wage once they're up and running. They have an internship, they have employment, and oh, by the way, they don't have any college debt. So those are the types of things that we need to look at from the legislative standpoint. We can't sustain these budgets with the money going to the schools when we're not getting anything out of it. I guess you have to look at it as a business equation. And so that's why I say push back on the schools. I mean, politely and with discipline, right? But the whole thing is, and we're trying to get our career tech schools involved, and there's a lot of great partnerships, and again, in my district with Vanguard Sentinel, and we got to have them if we're going to fill these jobs. And the overall lying problem, I think, is that we have to keep the population of Ohio up, but we just can't keep spreading these budgets around. So from a state perspective, it's all about the money, and from a jobs perspective, it's all about the money too. So a couple of thoughts.
Thank you very much, Representative. Wanted to ask you, Ron Motter, there is a room full of manufacturers here, so this is your big opportunity, a captive audience. We hear about the value of advisory boards. What other ways can manufacturers move the needle, if you will? What actions can these folks take so when they walk out of this room this afternoon, they feel like maybe they have a little to-do list where they can get somewhere with this rather than feeling like a hamster on a spinning wheel, right?
Well, to follow up with what Bill said about pushing back on your school, by a show of hands, if you've got 3 people here from your company or 2, one person stick up your hand if you've been invited to be a part of a career fair at an elementary school or middle school or high school in the district footprint that your business sets in. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 hands up, 5 hands out of about 90 people that are here. So that's a key piece in terms of that type of engagement. Yes, sir.
Well, I'd add this. They didn't want me to talk about any of the manufacturing jobs. They only wanted to talk about finance, engineering, and sales. They wouldn't let us talk. I tried to talk to a couple of students about it. I couldn't believe. I felt like I was like a bunny with wolves. They were on me telling me, nope, you gotta push everything that's a four-year university. So even though they let us come, they only wanted to talk about the jobs in the front office. I wasn't even allowed to consider talking to the students about the jobs in the manufacturing, and I was quite surprised, and at the end of the day, I was quite vocal. Wes can probably imagine how angry and vocal I was at the end. I didn't want to do it in front of the kids, but I let the people know, we won't be back if you're going to do that. All our jobs are worth having, and we're not interested in being part of something that's going to discriminate against part of our jobs.
Well, and you said a key piece, all of your jobs are worth having. As a nation, I don't think we value all work. Again, it's that if you have a four-year degree, and I'm not downplaying a four-year degree, but it's this, well, if you got a four-year degree, you must be something special. If you don't, but yet everyone up here has said about apprenticeships, changing his career path, parents realizing that's valuable. You don't have to go down this trajectory that someone has said this is the only way you can be successful. So one, I think, is going and knocking on the door of the superintendent or building principal. Hey, when you have a career fair, I'd like to have my company represented to talk about the whole array of job opportunities that we have. The second piece, if they have an advisory committee. At Penta Career Center, we have Vanguard Sentinel represented. Greg Ettinger's here. Their superintendent, Tim Meister, at 4 County Career Center. All of us have advisory committees for every one of our career tech programs. And so we want that input. I try to attend as many as I can. Ed gets there. The supervisors are there. John Reif's one of our supervisors. Marshall Wolf is there from our career services. And they know the question I put out to every advisory committee. Don't tell us what you think we want to hear. Tell us what we need to hear to put out the type of student that you want to hire at your company. Whether it's our advanced manufacturing program, criminal justice that Andrew was in, whether it's our small animal care, whether it's our construction, carpentry, construction electricity, HVAC. Tell us what we need to be doing to make, and it's got to be beyond, because we hear this general thing, well, if they show up on time, if they're drug-free, we get that, but we need to know on the skill side, what are the things that we need to really be emphasizing. And that's something I hope we can get out of this meeting today is kind of a commitment to let's look at what can we do with TPS, Oregon City, Vanguard, 4 County, Washington Local that have career tech programming. What can we do to get on the same page so that when a student comes out of a TPS, advanced manufacturing, or precision machining, it looks the same or at least a general shape that it looks like at Vanguard Sentinel, 4 County, and Penta, so that you know that you've got some quality control, that somebody that walks out from one of those programs, you know what you're getting, as opposed to, well, at Penta I know they really emphasize for X, Y, Z. No, we don't want to do that. We want to be a provider, as do all of us, that are going to meet your needs, to scratch your itches.
Thank you, Ron.
We've heard Vanguard a few times, Vanguard Sentinel, and we heard that they have really good relationships with area manufacturers. Let's hear from Greg a little
Wes
bit.
can walk and talk.
About
I'm impressed. I'm staying put.
Yeah, right. Don't give me any gum, exactly. So Greg, can you kind of share a little bit with us on how you have the relationships with the area manufacturers?
Sure. I might have to spit my gum out, so if it falls out while I'm talking, I apologize. Yeah, as Ron said, and Dr. Durant and Tim knows, I mean, yeah, all career centers, we're big on the advisories. And we reach out. We don't just call and expect anybody to show up. We go out to business and industry. We knock on the doors, as Representative Reineke knows, and just involvement of business and industry every single day. And as Dr. Durant said, and then the ones that are involved, and one big one I'll tell you is our precision machining at our Sentinel facility in Tiffin. National Machinery is so involved. They make sure the equipment is meeting the needs for the industry credentials. Then they're there firsthand. If they need 12 students, they got the first 12 right there, because they're right there just about, I'd say once a month probably, just about in the program, seeing what's going on, seeing the kids work. And then their senior year, the kids are actually out there working. That is their apprenticeship that whole year. So they got their industry credential, they're ready, and those are those connections, so they are already, staffed. And we're getting to that point where our senior years will be those apprenticeship programs, because kids are starting earlier, as we say. they start their freshman, sophomore year, getting their industry credentials so they can get out and do their apprenticeships. But that's all just building the connections, and again, going out to you as well, and then hopefully your doors are open, and not get tired of people knocking on the doors. It's not bugging anybody, it's trying to meet your needs, but in our community that has been receptive, we make sure that we do have staff to answer calls. Angie Morlock here is out in the business. She's on every workforce development board in our counties, the city economic development boards, the chamber board, so we're very visible in every single board with the economic development to make sure we are meeting the needs, and that all comes back to our programs to make sure then not just listening and hearing and actually implementing into the programs, which is big, that you can see the results at the end.
And I know just from having a conversation with Angie and getting to know Vanguard Sentinel a little bit, you know, interesting to learn too that as a former president and CEO of a chamber, you sort of understand business, and you know, you have a unique history as well. So just what you bring to your roles, you know what I mean? Just sort of the overlap and understanding of what's at stake here. So again, just another, I would say maybe a strength for Vanguard.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Andrew, I want to turn back to you and ask you a bit about, you know, we were really kind of surprised when Wes and I had lunch with the Billups, and we heard you talking about your generation, and I don't know, share a little bit about that. You're not too keen on the millennials, and yet you're a millennial.
Well, I wouldn't say I'm not too keen on all millennials, but a great majority of us, unfortunately, are lazy and just not go-getters. In the videos we watched prior to this, everyone was, well, it seemed like everyone was talking about the money, which I mean, it makes sense to me, but you know, you have to develop your skills and prove your skills work in the particular setting to actually get the salary you require. A lot of people don't realize that. I think the mentality in my generation is get rich quick. That's also sickening to me. You can't really get rich quick. You need skills to be able to propel yourself forward and be the best you can.
And we hear a lot about soft skills too, how key those are for employers looking for people who work well on a team or have leadership abilities, or, you know, I don't know if, again, it's not a skill showing up to work on time, right? But, you know, all the sort of the things that, well, I think it was referred to as character education in your area. So, but that's a piece of all of this too, you know, when I hear you talking about the way young people handle themselves these days.
Yeah, and just expanding on this, I think where all of this comes from is, you know, a lot of things are already done for us in the age we live in. A lot of things are automatic, or you know, you just don't have to do as many things to get something done in the age we live in now, which is a good thing on the surface, but it makes people think everything will be done for them already. That's not good.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there. Okay, we wanted to pull in another voice here, and that is, you know, again, we've been having a lot of phone calls. We had a chance to connect with the county and hear about some resources available there. So, Wes, I know you're going to take it from here.
We talked to Michael Vay here, Director of Business and Workforce Services, and we had some good discussions about some untapped resources and some free resources. I would like to have him talk a little bit about those.
I knew I was here for a reason other than the popcorn. One of the things I was asked to talk about, I've got two things I want to tell you about. One is the scope of services that are available to employers across the state. These are state-funded programs. Actually, they're federally funded programs through the state for your local workforce areas. You mentioned the workforce boards earlier. We provide services to businesses to help you source those workers, help you find the right quality of workers, and these are services that are free to you. So has anyone in here heard of Ohio Means Jobs, Lucas County? That's more than I expected. How about The Source? Anybody heard? couple, same ones, okay. This is a center downtown that really focuses on providing skill development and job-seeking skills for workers. But the flip side of that is it's also a resource for businesses to come and find workers. We host Business of the Day where businesses come in and they meet with people face-to-face, do interviews on the spot. We've worked with companies bringing in hundreds of workers for them. Mobus brought in 6 recruiters one day, interviewed over 300 people in our facility because they were having a hard time finding the skilled workers they need. Those kind of services are all available to you for free. They're paid for. Your tax dollars have already paid for them, and it's a chance to actually get some of your tax dollars back. We also have training programs so that when you hire someone who may or may not have the skills necessary, we can help you get them up to speed and offset some of those costs. One of the big things we've been doing lately, and it's going to be an extra benefit to everybody in this room who's in manufacturing, we've been working with Dana. About 2 years ago, where's Matt? 2 years ago, we got called into a meeting about Project Newport, which we didn't even know who it was at that point. We've been working with Dana ever since then because their biggest concern that they expressed to us was not finding enough applicants for the job, but finding enough who had the skills necessary to learn the jobs. And this goes back to what everyone on the panel has been saying. Because they worked directly with us and told us what they needed to see in an employee, we were able to take that message out to the community and tell people in the community, these are the things that you need to do if you have any chance of getting hired at Dana. A big piece of what we did was we went out through TPS in particular. We did 3 very good-sized community events. We did them at Woodward, Scott, and at Waite. Brought the community in. Instead of us saying, come down to us, we're going to go to them. We talked to them in their own neighborhoods, in their own areas, and we engaged them in a program that we call Work Ready Manufacturing that told them this is what you need to do to get ready for these jobs. It addressed a lot of those soft skills. It addressed all those things that get in the way of people being able to find a decent job. Transportation issues, we wanted to have them deal with those before the jobs came available. Anything dealing with child care, housing issues, you name it, we told them you have to deal with that first before you can apply for a job with any of these companies, because a lot of times that absenteeism or showing up late, it's not necessarily because they're a bad person, but they don't have anybody to watch their kid, or the ride that they thought they had broke down. So if they don't deal with those issues, they're not going to be able to show up on time for work and the rest of it. The big benefit to everybody in this room that's part of that work-ready manufacturing piece is we've had 300 people go through the entire process, which includes earning ACT's National Career Readiness Certificate. These folks are ready to learn new jobs. Dana's going to train them. They know they're going to have to train everybody. So they're looking at people who may not have the experience because they know they're going to have to compete with other companies to get those experienced workers, but they're going to train the workers, but they know that these folks have the basic skills. We've had 300 people go through already. We've got probably another close to 1,000 in the process. Dana's only going to hire 250 people. DMS, which is going in right next door to them, they're only going to hire about 200 people, which means there's going to be a glut of prepped, certified, teachable workers looking for careers in manufacturing, which is going to be a pool that everyone in this room who's in manufacturing looking for workers will be able to tap into. Will they be able to walk in off the street with the skills you need? Probably not. You're going to have to teach them some things. But they've already dealt with all those other issues that always run into problems with workers so that you know that when you get them, they're going to be ready to go to work for you. And this, again, is a free program. This is something that's paid for through some support from some of our partners. It's paid for through funds from the state of Ohio and through the federal government. So we just want to make sure that you're aware that there are resources out there. And we've been doing great things with TPS too. Does anybody know that TPS has an advanced electronics program that is currently doing work for NASA? Or a precision machining program that's doing work for NASA? I mean, these are things that are going on in the schools that unless you're engaged with the schools, you're not going to know about. And those kids are learning incredible stuff. And I'm embarrassed because I go out there and I have a master's degree and I see some of the stuff these kids are doing and I'm just stunned. And these are high school students. So there's my soapbox pitch.
Thank you. No, that's really helpful. And if someone in the room is interested in accessing some of these free services, would you encourage they reach out to you or?
Me or Lisa or Matt, anyone in our department?
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you, Mike. Wanted to turn back to the culture piece, and we were sharing some statistics earlier. 30% of parents encourage their kids to enter manufacturing. So I'm going to turn back to David Billups here. You're within the 30%. I guess your thoughts on your outlook and kind of how it differs from other parents. Again, this perception piece of manufacturing and what we want our kids to be when they grow up and et cetera. It's so huge and so ingrained.
Yeah, I mean, it sort of starts, it starts sort of out of the gate right in kindergarten, and then we sort of, and I think part of this is good to a point where we create these kids into, they all know how to do these skills, so we create little, what I would call almost drones at some point, but, so as we move forward, what I'm hearing around here, it gives me hope that we have change in this, but the sort of the way I came through is that this is your path. You'll go through here, you'll read and write again. You'll do it in different grade levels, and you keep sort of stacking the same types of skills that you did from the year before onto the next year. These are important skills to learn, but at some point, do you have and I think this is, as schools and as parents, we have to say, is this who I am? Is this my aptitude? Is this because, and in some regards, this is my only path. And so you're driven through this path, even though you're not highly successful at it. You find people out in industry that are highly successful. They were terrible in school. Why is that? This isn't how they learn. This isn't how they do things. I only found out only sort of after I graduated that it's the learning process is individual, because I have to have an overall grasp of what I'm looking at. I have to look at it globally. Then I can dig down in. Where in the educational system, they start you from the building block up, and then you get to the globe, which is exactly opposite of the way I need to learn. So, but I got through the system, I understand that, but I had to understand how I was before I could go back in and actually be successful. But just carrying that forward, this is where we were hearing about from Dr. Durant and Mr. Mahler, these, we can go out in these other paths and be real with ourselves, and also our expectation of our children. What is it you're good at, and what is it you're doing? And each of us as parents should know our child and know what they're good, know their skill sets, what they're interested in, what they have aptitude in, and the schools should know this as well. So let's start finding avenues where. And I was just thinking earlier, is there a way, do manufacturers as a group have a group where they get together and talk about things? Because if you do, you can start developing things that you all have commonalities in that you can bring back to TPS or to Penta, and you can start saying, we have these commonalities, let's start trying to drive these. Yeah. Not sure if I'm answering that in totality.
This is sort of like live streaming or however you want to put it, stream of consciousness. I mean, what I wanted to also point out too is that this is interactive, so if anyone here feels they've got things to say, please raise your hands, and maybe we'll even come, ask you something without you raising your hand. As a matter of fact, I've got my eye on you over in the corner from Sadat Park, right? Yes. Okay. I'm hearing really good things about what's going on at Sadat Park. I mean, I wonder if you might be willing to share, if you don't mind, some of your successes. See, this is like live TV, just off the cuff here.
You never know when you're going to be.
You never know. No, but
class.
And we're still learning. But if you could share with some of your successes and what your program is all about.
Well, we've got some different buckets, but one of the buckets that we have is supplying manufacturers with employees. We sit in a large area of, you talk about the unemployment rate It's very low, but the people that aren't participating in those numbers is still very high, particularly in the zip codes that we have. So we have a number of potential students right where we sit that we could bring in and train for these manufacturing jobs. So the main programs we have are certificate programs. They're short-term certificate programs. They're college credit eligible. So where we're located, we bring in minorities, women, and people that are maybe non-traditional students, bring them in, train them, industrial automation maintenance, computer training, and it's a wonderful success story because these people become confident with a hands-on training and quickly get to an employable condition. So we're fairly new there, and we're very fortunate. We've partnered with Toledo Public, with the Toledo Technology Academy, Penta. We've worked with the county. So the other thing that's been a key to our burgeoning success is that we're partnering, breaking down some silos with the different agencies around to get people to jobs. So we feel, and I think we've got some internships. So we've just started to get people out in internships, and we've been very successful at doing that. So, again, we've got, I think we did a Facebook survey, 77,000 people in the zip codes around our center that are not employed, that if we get them into the system. And of course, not everybody's going to be employable, but we brought people in, from drug rehabilitation, reentry, and gotten them quickly to a job. So, so we're very fortunate. UT's provided us a brand new facility, or we helped them get a grant. We have brand new manufacturing training equipment. So it's kind of a fun project to be a part of, plus to see the success.
Yeah, that sounds pretty
We're
exciting.
very thankful for our partnership with Toledo Public, and the county's been very helpful. Cherry Street Mission, we do a call center training at Cherry Street Mission for them. So a lot of entry-level type training to get somebody trained and in the door quickly.
Yeah.
And plus, it's a different way to go to college because you get college credit also from a lot of these programs. So
Exciting stuff. Thank you for sharing. I mean,
Thank you.
talk about putting you on the spot. Wes.
So
Yeah, that's right.
when Susan and I were trying to put this together, we started talking to a lot of people, and it was like drinking water through a fire hose. And we found a really good report, December 2016 report called Building Ohio's Future Workforce. And in this report, it identified some key recommendations and common themes, including collaboration, better communication, and partnerships. And we'd like to have Representative Reinecke talk a little bit about that report and maybe give an updated status on where things are today.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure to serve on that, as I already mentioned, and it's been really eye-opening from the standpoint of the education, meeting up with the workforce. I just want to go back real quick to the University of Toledo program. That is a spectacular program, and everybody in manufacturing needs to visit that place. I've pleaded with Dr. Graber not to close it down because of lack of attendance. But it's a good example of the collaborativeness from Northwest State, and Tara was in it for a while. But it's a good way that we have to look at it from the state standpoint and from the workforce task program. This all costs money, and it all comes from taxpayers. So how do we make it more efficient? Well, we have got to collaborate. We've got to have programs that coincide. So high school programs have to coincide with the state colleges, with the four-year colleges. So, and we're working on different programs where kids can get credits. So 65%, the goal of the task force was that by the year 2025, 65% of all people in Ohio between the ages of 25 and 64 have to have some kind of a credential, an associate degree, a four-year degree, and or some other apprenticeship type program. So that's where we're moving to based on the statistical information that we need to fill the jobs that are available. I know in Tiffin is where I'm from. Our mayor did a study. There's like 500. Sandusky County, there's 1,000. Finley, there's 2,000. And up here in Perrysburg, there's quite a few too. So this is a very relevant problem that we need to make drastic steps and work towards. So the collaborative programs where they have them in high school that work with the tech schools, then you can go to the community college. We call those 2+2s or 1+3s, and there's a lot of exciting opportunities, really. So we were talking this afternoon at lunch about a young man who's taking a welding program, so he gets a certificate in that, so he can work, has a certificate, he can go on to college, get a 2-year degree, and then if he wants to get a 4-year degree, he can. And then the best thing is he comes out with little or no college debt. Another thing I did want to mention was the virtual learning, and at the University of Toledo Scott Park campus, if you walk through there, they happen to have a screen where they had a Cleveland Clinic on with Mumbai, India. And I know we're doing that in Fostoria. It's with the virtual learning. Somebody mentioned transportation. How do we get these students to the classroom? Well, we have to do some of this through virtual learning, through different updated types of education. So it's really, if you look at it as being new and creative, it can be a lot more fun than looking at it as a challenge. So those are a couple of the things. Again, I'd just like to stress that this report also really encouraged the advisory committees, and then also trying to get teachers trained. It wasn't to put a burden on the teachers. It was just to give them the opportunity to know what's out in the marketplace, what we need to have these jobs, or what jobs need to be filled. So, thank you.
So I want to, you talk about the partnerships, the collaboration. We're hearing a lot of this talk, better communication regionally and statewide. I'm thinking about among manufacturers, that type of communication too, and partnerships. So we have learned recently about some successes in other parts of the state, specifically in the Youngstown area in Mahoning County, right along the Pennsylvania line. Apparently, manufacturers stepped forward in that area and established a coalition, manufacturer and industry-led, founded this thing and launched that back in 2012. We had a chance to talk to the executive director of that coalition, and they've really moved the needle there. So it's kind of just interesting that manufacturers sort of came together, sort of let those walls down, because we understand that when you're in private industry, there are some, you're hesitant, right, to maybe team with who might be a competitor or someone who might be looking for, to go after potentially hiring the same folks that you are. So anyway, we found that to be particularly interesting, and I was just curious what you all think about that concept. Is that something that sounds doable here? Again, it sounds like they're having some successes, and we're hoping to learn more about it, but what do the manufacturers think? Does anyone have any comments on that? Is that viable? Is that something that you'd be interested in? Yes.
I think any manufacturer would be interested in new and creative ways to find qualified workers. But I was going to ask, actually, do you know anything about the program that you could explain what they're doing together and how they're sharing and what they're sharing?
I can't rattle things off. Representative Reineke, I don't know how much you know about the coalition, but I do know that they're moving the needle in that part of the state, and they were kicking in dollars too off the top there.
Yes, it's a private-public relationship because the investors, being the companies that needed the employees, put this together, and they do mentorships, and then they try to provide actual schooling from the standpoint of what the criteria is for the schoolroom, so that they have that when they come out, and then they can go on to these other programs. But it's also done through the technical schools, and it varies by different parts of the state. I know in Sandusky County we've done a showcase where you load 800, 900 kids on the buses and take them to the schools, and then everybody has a little station and you show them different ways to do things. So Youngstown had a specific problem because they had a very low graduation rate, and they were losing students. So they had to come up with something. So their school board was replaced with a business group, and they had to change things around. It was a whole different type of program.
Right.
Jim Trussell was the chairman.
I do have the action plan right here. So let's pass that around. But
Susan, one of the key pieces of that program out in Mahoning County and Youngstown area was bringing together this manufacturing coalition getting together with the schools, connecting with their counterparts of Vanguard, TPS, 4-County, Penta, to look at the curriculum in the career tech programs that meet their needs and making sure that there was commonality across that curriculum. So it wasn't that a student coming from school X looks different than Y and Z. Well, wait a minute, we all want what comes out of X. How do we get Y and Z? So again, I said that earlier. I hope that's something that we can move towards, is that type of conversation amongst all of us to identify what those critical skill sets are. And that would be a great first step for all of us. But we've all got to get a skin in the game in this at some point, because once we lose the workforce edge, we aren't going to exist in this region of the state.
And just to add to that, when studying or going over to Germany to study their model, 88% of the workforce development was paid for by industry. The government paid the other 12%. And the industry owned the curriculum, industry owned the teaching. They collaborate with teachers that co-teach the lessons together. And then they went right out into the laboratory and where they began to execute things that they learned in the classroom. So it had a huge impact of industry truly having a complete hands-on. But more importantly, what they found was that, like Siemens had put a lot of millions into their workforce development. And they say, we're only going to probably hire 5 of them. But we understand the impact of the other 20 with the local economy. That money revenue would impact us in some way. 10 years from now, they'll be a better employee and they'll be back at our doors. So they were looking at it from more of outside of the industry's perspective, but more importantly, the local economy, which is why they had the lowest unemployment rate between 16-year-olds to 24-year-olds, because everybody was a consumer. And so so you got bakeries all over the place, and you're wondering how do they even survive, because they wouldn't survive here in Toledo. Well, because everybody's consumers, 16 to 24-year-olds, are all paying their own way and not relying on mom and dad to pay for things. So it had a huge impact by truly being invested financially in there.
Interesting. I know we wanted to get to 4-County because we had a conversation with them as well, just about what's going on out in that part of the state. So, Wes, did you want to put Tim on the spot?
We'd like to talk to Tim here and talk about how he works with the businesses in his area, what's working, and this is your chance to talk to manufacturers. There's several companies in your area here. Can you talk a little bit about what's going on in your area?
I'll try not to rehash what Ron and Greg said. So basically, I spent all my entire educational career at a homeschool, not at a career center. So I can talk a little bit about what Ron said, and that we're not degenerating what a 4-year degree is, because, hell, we all have them. That's the way we got our jobs. But we also see every day that there is a different pathway. So when I got to 4-County, one of the things that we had is our manufacturing program was dead because we could not get kids to enroll in it. And more importantly, we couldn't we had parents not allowing their kids to enroll in it, because that's a stigma. And so we had to figure out how to fight that. So we worked, and Lynn and Matt's here from Spangler and Todd from Pioneer. We regenerated our manufacturing program by turning over to our manufacturers. So I brought them in, I took them to the lab, they went through, they pointed to the machines we should keep, they pointed to the machines that we should throw away, and we followed them. We redid the lab, we made it so it's cross-cultured, meaning that it wasn't just a lab for those kids to come into a lab, that we were going to allow other programs to walk in and get some short-term training. And so, for example, our kids in auto tech, they were coming into that smart lab, which is what we call it, and they were working on robotics, routers, plasma cutters, mills, and lathes. Because we truly feel like the more skill set they have, the more employable that they are. We brought those same manufacturers back, was it October, Lynn, somewhere in there, when the lab was done and the kids were in there, and we said, the rule is walk in and don't talk to the instructor, only talk to the kids, and then when you're done, tell us what to do different. Because I wanted them to have a hand in what we were doing, because to me it seems awful silly that in education we decide what you need. I think it should be the way around. You need to come and tell me what we need, then set the lab up that way. So I don't know if Lynn or wants to talk about the lab that he saw, or Todd, which you can, but I give them a little bit. But the other thing I would say educationally that I would encourage you as businesses to do, because I think you do want to get involved with schools, and we have no issues with our businesses in our area because we have a great relationship with them. We see that more and more.
but don't pigeonhole our kids, meaning that if we have a kid in auto tech, I hear manufacturers say, well, I'd hire him, but he's a kid in auto tech. Well, let's see, that means he's read a wiring blueprint, he understands how an HVAC system in a car works, he understands how gears and mechanisms work. A kid in our plumbing program, he's read blueprints of houses, he understands flow, he understands how things work together. So we're really trying to move away from, you're a graduate of Fort County and you're in auto tech, welding, carpentry, and trying to move to, you are a graduate of Fort County and here is the skill set that you possess that maybe you could fit into multiple businesses. I don't know if that helps or not, but that's kind of what we're doing with our businesses. Like I said, Lindsay went through the Smart Lab, so we can probably talk a little bit about that.
Lynn?
Yeah, so I believe it was October, but Tim had a group of us out and asked us to go through the Smart Lab so we could see what was happening. And it was really nice because we were able to interact with the kids. As he said, his only rule was you were not allowed to talk to the instructor. And the kids did not know we were there. So we all walked in, about 15 of us, I believe, and you see the deer in the headlights look at all these kids. And but it was really interesting because you could go ask them, hey, what are you working on? What are your parameters? What are you trying to accomplish here? And then to see them and to see them connect the dots. And then afterwards, when we got done and we went back in and we were talking, we had some pretty frank discussions. But one of the things that was suggested was help them become problem solvers. And it really doesn't matter if you're on the mechanical side of things, if you are a production employee. It doesn't matter if you're in first grade, second grade. You need to be able to solve problems. If you can solve problems, you can do anything. And then you can pick out where your passion goes. And for us, you know, that's a big piece. The other piece, you know, changing the mindset of the parents, of the students about the career centers, I think is a big piece. We've started having our local high school bring kids in the 9th and 10th grades, and we talk to them. We have them come into the conference center. We sit down, we talk to them about what we do, about what Spangler Candy is, about what kind of jobs and equipment that we have, just so they get an understanding of what is out there. You know, making candy is pretty fun, but we use a lot of robotics. We have a lot of automation. We're a fairly high volume operation, but it's nice to see the kids start thinking about how that applies to what they really want to do. And if they can figure out what they want to do and something they're passionate about, it becomes pretty easy for them. But to me, the problem-solving piece, we've had a couple, I think this is the second year that we've had internships. And one of the interns we had on the electrical side. He just completed his internship, I believe, this past month, and he's going to be hired on a full-time basis. So that's a real success story for us. And the other good thing is that, you know, you want to be involved. You want to get out there. You want to see the kids. It's very much like coaching a ball team. You want to see who's out there because you want to be in the mix to pick the A and B players if you can get them. Or you want to, if you don't get them, you want to know who they are so that, you know, in a couple years from now, if they're come knocking on your door, hey, I remember you. I'd like to have you on my team. And that's going to help you be successful down the road, too. So I don't know if anybody else wants to add to that.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Please do.
Say, you know, on a team and success and that image and stigma. And this wasn't driven by us. This was actually driven by one of our local partnerships and manufacturers to that internship as well. So what the business did was they wanted to make a big deal out of it. It was Webster Industries. So what they did, just as you talk about an athlete signing to go to a college, they actually held like a signing day at a local restaurant. The paper came, and the next day in the paper was 4 Sentinel students signed with Webster Industries.
Nice.
And the whole article was
like
about
that.
what their career was in manufacturing and all that. And that was driven by the same example as yours, that they could just make that big deal out of the kids. And that job is actually important and a great career. So I thought
like
that was
that.
a neat twist to change that image.
That is great, and just great message. Love it. And it ties in with what Dr. Durant was saying earlier, too. Thank you to our panelists so much, and for everyone who contributed for that portion. Want to shift to our next activity here, which is our roundtable discussions. We have an assignment for you all, which hopefully will be fun, and maybe we'll really be able to pull something out of it. We have 3 questions that we'd like all of you to tackle at your tables, using the Post-it notes to answer these 3 questions for us. And then what we'll do is we'll give you about 10 or 15 minutes to work on this, and then we'd like you to take your Post-its and just either stick them on the easel boards at your tables or have someone at your table gather them all and sort of give a report to the room as to what your table has concluded when it comes to these questions. So the questions are, number 1, we're asking manufacturers to, sort of as Ron alluded to earlier, write down 3 skills your business needs from young people. So these are potentially skills that an educator in your area could be providing if they know that you need them. Also, write down ways you think manufacturers can take action now to help solve this workforce shortage. And also, would you be interested in being a part of potentially a manufacturing-led council or coalition for Northwest Ohio? You know, if we get a sense that maybe folks like that idea, maybe we can reach out to the folks out in the Youngstown area and see if maybe we can schedule another event where we have them come and report on their successes and their action plan for all of you to hear about. So those are the 3. And we do have also, in case you are interested, there is a sign-up sheet at each table. If you're interested in learning more about potentially teaming with other manufacturers to create a collaborative of some kind, please give us your contact information just so that we have that. So those are your assignments, and we'll give you 15 minutes for that. So it's 4:20. So maybe, well, 15 minutes from now, we'll call the room back to order and see what you guys got. I'm not doing that math right now. All right, everybody, we gave you a little more than 15 minutes, so we're going to ask you to sort of wrap up your conversations and report to the rest of the room what conclusions you've reached at your table in regard to our 3 questions. So we'll go table by table. Go ahead and just put your Post-its up on your easel board or however you want to do that. We're going to start with table 1. Wes, I'll send it over to you to hear what you guys concluded.
Sure. So we talked about the 3 questions. The first is, you know, some of the skills that businesses need. The biggest one was probably problem solving, right? So having students that have the problem solving skills. That doesn't mean solving the problem by themselves, but helping come up with solutions. Thick skin was a one that came up a couple times. You know, being able to take criticism. On manufacturing, there's somewhat of a unofficial hazing period, right? All of that. So you got to have a little bit of thick skin in the game today. Communication was a big one, a couple different ways. So communicating, schedules, communicating, all of that. But then also, it's hard to differentiate the really good from the not so good because the communication has been so poor. So it's hard to really tell. So communication is a big one. And then teamwork. Teamwork obviously was a big one. So. As far as a couple action items, we talked about getting involved in the schools at a younger age, right? An intern program was talked about, and an intern program as soon as they can start driving, so getting them in early. Brian here has an intern in marketing and said it's really been really well. And then JB really talked a little bit about selling it as short term. To start in manufacturing, because if you try and sell it as a 40-year career, it's really hard to kind of envision what that's going to be like 40 years in manufacturing, because they kind of have heard historically how that works. So kind of sharing that short-term vision and then kind of going beyond that. As far as a coalition, I think there's definitely some interest. What we had talked about is that coalitions typically are from the highest level. So the owners, the presidents, those are the ones that really should be involved and driving the ship there. And so I think that will really help. So that was us. We'll go to table 2, right behind me.
Okay, table 2, I got designated as the spokesman. So So what we put down was the problem solving and really about having people that are able to think through things, to collaborate on things, to solve the different issues as they come up. On the manufacturing floor, we have problems every day. That's never going to change. It's a matter of trying to get the right group of people that work well together to solve them as fast as you can and get to the right answer. The other thing we talked about was teamwork versus soft skills and where that really falls into play. And it really comes down for the ability for people to interact with each other. And one of the things that typically I see when we get new people in and they're really successful, they're people that say, hey, I need help with something. I don't understand this. Can you help me? And when they do that and they take their guard down and ask for help, there is a swarm of people that come over and help them succeed. The ones that usually have the most difficulty seem to be the ones that say, I don't need it, I'll figure it out on my own. And then the people kind of let them fail. I think they like to see people be humble. I don't know if, I think you guys said maybe hazing as they started. I think it's the school of hard knocks, maybe for lack of a better term. But if they can figure out how to work together early and ask for help, it seems like the more senior people are really ready to help them. And then the last one we had down was communication, just the ability to interact, to be able to talk with each other. And then, you know, a lot of times when they go down on break, you see people sitting with somebody and they'll get up and go ask somebody a question, and all of a sudden they've got a napkin out and they're drawing out some things. Well, hey, when you go back, try this, this, and this. So those are some different things. On writing down ways to take action to help the workforce shortage, one of the things we talked about was how you train the people, and about how those people are you know, so dependent on laptops, on their phones. You know, from a food environment, we don't allow the phones in the workplace. So, you know, how can we create a different avenue? So one of the things we're looking at is, can we get like a smart TV, an interactive TV that we can have the SOPs on there and a troubleshooting guide on there. So when they need something, they can just go do it. They can interact and pull the data out of there and find a creative way to let them do things that they like to, the way they like to do them, but still give them the information. And then the other thing we talked about is, you know, and I think it was Andrew that said, you know, part of the millennial generation, you feel are so focused on money when they, you know, hey, it's all about what am I going to make, where am I going to end up, you know, help them understand that, you know, hey, if I'm making $12 an hour, that's one thing, but oh, there's incentive on top of that, you know, there's benefits on top of that, here's some retirement things, so what does that look like? Or, oh, it's $12 an hour if you start out as a production worker, but if you want to be a cook, it's $16 an hour. Or if you go back to school and we'll pay for your schooling while you're working here, and you go get some experience and you become an electrician, maybe you can get to $20 or $22 an hour. So let them know the avenues they have for growth and potential that way. And then the last thing on the coalition, I think there's interest at our table for the coalition.
Great, thanks, Lynn. And we are also going to be taking all of these Post-it notes and giving them, writing them up and giving them to the educators as well around here so that they can have those, which we know is a big thing. So, table 3.
So we are a table of mostly educators, and we did not follow directions and put it on sticky notes. Although we do have a couple manufacturers, so I'll just go over some notes. And I feel really sorry for the table at the back who has to go last, because we're hearing multiple themes already, which we have some of those as well. So troubleshooting was labeled as one of the skill sets that students are needing. Programming and integration systems. Some of that, again, where'd you go? There you are. You know, what you just said about the ability to have that information at their fingertips is something that they're used to, and that might not be something that is available to them right there in the workforce or when they're in the arena. And then mechanical and electrical systems. Did I get those right? As far as things that we can do, ways manufacturers can help take action, they talked about offering apprenticeships and internships to students working with the schools, or employment opportunities. One of our manufacturers offers plant tours. I'm not community-based, and then also to school systems that come in even at early ages, third graders, and then another school called and it was a different age level. So offering those. And then also we talked about sponsoring programs like FIRST Robotics programs that the manufacturers can get involved in those. At the career tech level, we have Skills USA and DECA and Business Professionals of America. If businesses get involved in those as well and sponsor those. And we didn't even get to question 3. So are you guys interested? Yes, we're interested.
Table 4.
Yeah, my table conveniently went to the restroom when it was our turn. But we heard a lot of the same things that everyone else has been talking about. But the biggest thing that we talked about was just the drug-free. We had an example of they went through an interview, perfect person. They asked, would you be able to pass the drug test? And they said, yeah, all I do is smoke weed, so I have no problem. So unfortunately, they did not realize weed was still a drug. The other thing we talked about was just getting people to show up to work and the work ethic. So we can do everything in the world, have these great programs, but if we can't motivate the millennials to work hard, to show up to work. We also talked about, and I remember when I was in high school in Fremont, is people that did not graduate from the high school, there's a stigmatism that says, okay, if they go to Vanguard, it means they can't handle Fremont, which is completely not true. Because a lot of my friends that graduated with those 4-year degrees that went on to college were starting off making $25,000, $30,000. My friends who went through the Vanguard program and obtained a very good hands-on training started 4 years earlier than a lot of my friends did, and they had much stronger programs. That was about 18, 20 years ago, but that was just something that we remember going through the high school too. And there was interest in the coalition, making sure that the manufacturers do put a little skin in the game and work together.
Good. Table 5.
Ours was a lot of the same stuff, as far as, troubleshooting, problem solving. One thing was also making sure that the basic skills aren't left behind, showing up to work. Also basic math skills, extremely important still. With the second topic, as far as ways to, the manufacturers can, help immediately. We have 2 groups that their companies are on advisory committees. Both of them are in kind of the beginning stages of that, but both are hopeful that there's going to be a long-term benefit from that. One of the interesting things, plant tour, 6 students came out with the guidance counselor, and Gary shared that the most interested person was actually the guidance counselor. Never been to a manufacturing facility. These are the same people that are also encouraging and guiding, the high school students. So that was the biggest takeaway. Not necessarily just engaging with the students, but also the instructors, the guidance counselors, everyone within your footprint.
We've got a lot of the same types of things that you guys had. Certainly, we talked in number 1 about the troubleshooting and the problem-solving skills. And, no matter what industry you're in, they've got to get some training in regards to that. Every day, it's a different problem you're trying to solve, so that's not anything, I guess I would say, that's unique. In terms of ways manufacturers can take action to help, the biggest thing Miguel mentioned is be in the schools early. Get in there as early as you can. Talk to people, talk to the students about manufacturing, construction, et cetera, so they start to take an interest in it. The other thing that was brought up was the parents and how important it is for the parents to start to get involved and understand what manufacturing construction is. Again, we talked about that stigma issue that's out there. So, and kind of to Tony's point, again, maybe even getting parents in a manufacturing facility so they understand it's not the dirty, grimy stuff it used to be at some point in time. It's really exciting, et cetera, that could certainly help. Another idea was to get a person who's been out of school for about 4 years, that maybe started at $12 an hour and now is up to making $20-some an hour and doing things different, that, getting them into the school system would be just as if not more effective, because now they go, hey, that guy just got out like me, and here are some of the opportunities he's had over the last X number of years. So it's not just here's what I start at and this is what I'm going to make the rest of my life. There are opportunities if I'm a good employee and have the skills. So, and we didn't get to number 3 either, but I'm sure they'd be happy to be involved.
Great, thanks, Steve. Table 8.
Thanks, Wes. Okay, I mean, again, if I'm table 8, obviously, we've already heard 6 renditions. But again, I mean, so much of it was dealing with collaboration with the schools. And even one thing I actually haven't heard, internal training, teaching common sense. What people think is common sense to someone who's been there for 5, 10, 15 years just isn't always common. It's just not. And so, other than that, that was one of our number 2. I mean, we talked about a lot of teamwork and reliability are key skills that need to they want to see in the students, and we're also in for number 3.
Great. Anything over here?
Sure. So again, some of the similar items. Problem solving. We also said training them somehow to be initiative takers. A lot of times they'll finish one assignment and don't know what to do, have to wait for instruction. That's something that would be important to them. Also, just being considerate. There's some people who just aren't, aware of what their other, coworkers' needs are. And hardworking, teachable. Let them be learners and listeners so they can learn from the instructions they received. And again, same thing as what many of you have already said, the team players. Regarding number 2, same thing that Steve was saying, change the mindset of what the mentality is for that type of work. It used to be that the factories weren't clean. There's so many, manufacturers now that it is a clean setting. It's, controlled for the temperature. It's enjoyable to work in that situation. And that the work is definitely valued, changing that mindset. And then looking beyond the initial pay rate, oftentimes there's a better, retirement plan that can be associated with some of those jobs. And, even though the initial pay, isn't as competitive as some of the other jobs, look beyond just that initial pay. So those were our ideas.
Almost done. Table 10.
Well, I've never been very good at following directions, so I'm going to kind of change the conversation altogether, because certainly we've already worked through many of the exact same things that we've heard already, but I'm going to kind of focus on maybe number 2 a little bit, and I won't be as bold as ask you to raise your hand, but one of the things that we kind of talked about at our table is we created the problem. As parents, we created the problem. When we talk about number 2, what can we do, I guess I'm going to challenge you. I'm going to parrot some of the things that I've heard certainly Ron Motter talk a lot about is, career centers, any kind of training center. We may not be the right place for every single student, but we need more students. So I guess the question I'm going to pose as opposed to an answer, how many of us are also encouraging our own children to be involved? It's much like what we hear when we do surveys about public education. There's a outcry, oh my gosh, public education ought to be fixed. But when we ask you about your own district, but my district's doing great, right? Maybe that same thing kind of applies to us here. We need to solve the problem of a work shortage, but are we looking at our own districts? Are we looking at our own school settings? Are we looking at our own kitchen tables to say, I have the solution right in front of me? So not a lot of answers, but maybe some questions to ask the question, how do we solve it? We have to have our own accountability to solve that.
I somehow got nominated for table 11, so a lot of the same things that everyone's been saying, critical thinking, problem solving. One of the big takeaways on number 2 was for manufacturers to actually donate equipment to these schools or to programs that are teaching the up-and-coming children, or I guess young adults, to start their career in manufacturing. So donate that equipment, old equipment, could be new equipment, but really invest in those centers who are teaching these young adults. So that was, I guess, the biggest takeaway. Everything else has been said 15 times.
Thank you, Chris.
I'm not good at math.
Taking the mic away.
All right, we're a little over, but just wanted to say thank you all for coming and staying. We do want to let you know we have sort of a social hour at 5, so if you'd like to stay and continue a conversation, please do. We'd love to do that. And also on your way out, you can thank that Penta graduate who is operating the camera for us today. I just learned in one of our breaks that Tiernan is a Penta Career Center graduate, so there you go. So thank you all for coming, and I think this went really well. Have a great evening.